Okay, daily trading recap. Let's get after today on this Monday, the 4th of April, 2022. A little bit of a nothingness day today, learning all around and progression in my trading career, just on a personal note and just of how I was looking at trades in general. So I think a good step in that direction for today, just as a general quick synopsis for me. To Christ be the glory. As always, let's go over dollar volume just as reference for me today. NASDAQ $240 billion volume as of 2 hours and 27 minutes after the close. NYSE $325 billion volume. OTC's $1.9 billion volume of the day. That's a mouth breather thingy. So I had caught up in the futures aspect again. I did not get off the strategy Sunday before the futures open there to be a part of the opportunity to nail that little move there for that strategy that I have been backtesting and still been a part of, so missed out on that opportunity, and then went forward again with that 930 strategy, getting long right at the open, looking for that specific number of points based on however metric or data that I've found and collected, and certainly did happen by a wide margin. That my stop is now defined or refined to that 10 a.m. time frame, but I cut it short once again. I got to this little bit of sell-off point. Thoughts are contemplating in my head of trying. The reason why I'm watching this in the first place is I don't understand, and why I keep it still in the. I might have to even eventually just go to not even watching it, but then just limiting to a timer that if I'm still long, or just putting that in the strategy itself of if I'm still long by that 10 a.m. time frame to get me out, so that I can't even watch it anymore, because that cutting profits short, cutting winners short like this today, screws over my entire backtesting data. And it's totally a different thing from the perfect little vacuum that is backtesting and collecting of data, and it's in no way, shape, or form an indicator of what's going to happen in the future, but of what has been there and what this whole trade is entirely based on gets screwed over when I mess with the fundamentals of what the trade is and trying to be God, or trying to just be finicky perfect with it, trying to be cutesy with it. I think it's a good way to put it. So I literally stopped myself out perfectly for break even, as I thought this candle, as we got the nice spike above VWAP there, I felt just whatever feeling that was there of like it was just barely shy of hitting 2 points above that open price there for me to get filled. And it was, I think this candle did actually hit the mark that I was needing to seek, but for very, very brief, short amount of time. So, but it was actually above, so I definitely would have gotten filled if I was in that before that little tiny wick candle above there. But sure enough, it started rolling over. But I mean, within the parameters that I've defined for this trade, me cutting it short is just unacceptable. So outside of that, after having done that, just carried over that kind of stupidity, rearranged myself and came back to, was very tempted to once again try and step in the way or make up that lost money with an ES trade, with trying to pick a bottom or just trade it for a quick little scalpy. And I will still never forget the terrible day. I want to say it was a 4K day, but that just sounds incredibly wrong. I think it was a 2K loss day for how I just continually dug myself into a deeper and deeper hole. And that's now become one of my rule sets of I am not allowed to touch ES or MES unless I am fully aware of the risk reward that I'm taking. It just can't be willy-nilly. It can't be, oh, it's a green candle, I'm going to buy it because it's going up. That's just no longer going to be happening or a part of my trading scheme. So I did a very good job today of continuing to tell myself that and not push the button when I was just so kind of desperate to, or really wanted to. This point specifically, though, 956, I wrote in my journal, and I was very adamant on it for when we were getting pretty parabolic here, pretty nice price action consistently right in a row. Tick was also perfectly stopping out at 600 mark at that 956 point. Perfectly rose right to there to suggest an exhaustion of buying pressure at that specific time. So, of course, it doesn't have to reject immediately off of there. And how many times have they blown? How many times will they blow past that indicator as well too? But just using that as a little mark to say, hey, that was a nice. I was absolutely right there looking for that little tiny move to show any amount of wayward stoppingness of the upward movement for the little tiny rollover and playing for that little scalp within these 2 minutes of a move down there. Not looking for anything crazy, not looking for a huge sell-off, but that was a part of it that I didn't push the button for, that I would rather have that problem than pushing the button far too much, but of just being very uber selective in my sniper shots and what I'm actually going over. But still was pushing on some MES contracts, just taking one contract at a time, trying to predict or just be a part of it, but in good risk-reward situations. So I did take one long, I think a little bit from off of the base here, I think, to the push above. I forget where it was specifically on that one, but I know for sure I took one short off of this point here, taking it for a nice little move just before VWAP for a nice little recovery. So I ended up we were net neutral on the day after all these other equity trades as well. So I would most definitely rather be making $0 on the day than losing money on the day. But so definitely room for improvement and just pursuing more good methodologies as a trader rather than just making money, because that is, of course, the ultimate overarching goal is we need to be making money. But the rule sets and everything defined in order to get there have to be coming to the markets and the screens with a good trader mentality. And it can't just be willy-nilly throwing ES contracts around and just playing everything stupidly without any risk or consideration for what could go wrong when it does go wrong, because it's going to go wrong many, many times. And, of course, having to experience that, putting the hand in the fire, you learn very quickly not to do that again. So that was all I really had for the introduction. Let's go ahead and go into PLX. This was all paper. I traded on the day just as reference for me. American Biopharma, 40 million floater. I did see they got 11% shares short of the float. Newscast today was they had top line results from their phase 3 trial. No buzzwords or keywords on that specific disease. I believe Fabry disease, whatever that is. They also had a H.C. Wainwright ATM of $20 million. They got a shelf from 2019. Few warrants exercisable at $2.36. So not really interested in that today, but I wrote here in the pre-market notes that I kind of carried a short bias in this one today because of how it was trending in this pre-market session. For some reason, I feel that when these open at market open a little bit closer to when they open above VWAP and when they open closer to the pre-market tops, for some reason I feel there is more bias for these things post morning session to be having a downward trend. Not in any way, shape, or form. Of course, this one has defied that today, but just for some reason, that's what I felt the sentiment has been, that if they just continue to go, they can have maybe a little bit more continuation or craziness as soon as the bell hits, but then pretty soon, shortly after, maybe hour after market open, that's really the top, and there's some predictable downward action off of that craziness because of already all the craziness that has come into this thing and squeezed a lot of the shorts out of it in pre-market already. So it's kind of tempered with the temperaments of a lot of the players in it already, and that can be unfortunate sometimes for continual volatility and action throughout the trading day. But started in on this one short very nicely. Got an awesome fill identifying that 166 for that little top in that first spike in the 3rd minute of the market day. Pulls back all the way to VWAP. I think Chris actually did get an awesome, nice little long on this one, playing a dip and rip. Hard for me to call it a dip and rip because it still is above VWAP, but it is still higher lows, still holding above VWAP, and obviously puts in some great technical bases to risk a long trade-off. And those are the things, too, that I have to factor in as well and continue to open my perspective up to realize and not just become so glued to my current position of, well, I'm short, so it's got to go down. And just only looking at that and not realizing, oh, great, this was an awesome long entry position. Look at this little technical hold here. Now it's holding. Now it's looking like it's got a pretty good shot with volume attracting to it to push to a new high of day. Being able to recognize those quicker and adjust to the changing tides is what is most important on these first screen day movers, especially because, these first screen day movers, who freaking knows what they're going to do on all these days. There's just so many different avenues and ways that these things can trade, and all of them are really possible, but yet it's just of what volume is there today. Is there dilution first off, and is that dilution going to act as the second bigger question on top of all of it of, yeah, it's great. Oh, okay, that's a huge indicator that there's huge at the money or there's huge dilution potentially overhead to hold this thing down, but is it going to act today? Does it want to act at a higher price 3-4 days down the road? Does it really want to act today? So that's just trading in general, too, trying to predict those specific things, but reading the tea leaves of what's happening in the time sales and level 2 of what is really the sentiment for the chart on the day. So respecting, cutting my losses quickly 2 times and then stopping or trying to get in on this of predicting the top or just playing it to the short side paper-wise. That's what I continue to do over and over again. Still have not figured that out yet whatsoever of trying to see where that rollover point actually is, and that's just for me at this point, it's really not that type of trade is not becoming a playbook trade for me of
that hit rate just isn't working out. Sometimes it's awesome and beautiful, risk reward of, man, getting almost nailing a cent like I did with this trade here, of this first one, of nailing pretty much near the top on that candle before it was able to roll over there and find. Of course, I'm looking for more than just for it to hold VWAP. I'm looking for it to break to new low in market hours and start to test 1.5, of course, and then break through the low of that. But when it doesn't happen, then it's just sometimes it's not uncontrollable risk, but you're going to have to take huge slippage. If you're going to risk high of day, you're going to get pushed and the squeeze through along with everybody else that's also short, then it has to get out once it squeezes to a new high off of there. So it's just a kind of never-ending cycle game of how much pain and tolerance can you take on those losses that way. So if you can figure it out, if I can actually find the backside, then it becomes a profitable strategy. So that's what I did with this candle specifically here, was the mentality of, after my thoughts had kind of settled down, and I'm looking at this chart here to say, you know what if we just, for funsies, I really don't expect much out of this trade. I'm not trying to play anything here. This is just truly, totally educational and speculative. The shares really didn't matter to me, but it was just about actually pushing a button and establishing, saying, I'm getting long at this point, paper-wise, for whatever that's worth. But to say, okay, let's just try this little strategy of, what if we just completely forget about the first half hour of the market open, completely even forget, we can even let it ride at times to an hour after market open. And what is the precise, doesn't have to be precise, but what is the range of time period that we can look for that most of these start to produce the back end? And it doesn't have to be the full death sentiment for the chart. A lot of these first green day movers don't just completely die and fade away on that first green day intraday. But what is the appropriate range for the backside of any morning volatility craziness should they continue to hold to the upside of VWAP and produce some nice dollar volume and percentage move upwards? When does that move normally happen? That's what the key for this one is, of just, I wasn't looking to find a precise top to be shorting into, or a technical top to be shorting a double top, like etc. on all of those, but just, okay, I'm going to be in here to say that let's play the backside move, and we're willing to potentially take, and I of course end up doing that, of, even though it did kind of triple top here at this point and breaking through to the upside all the way to $2. I think this one is, all of these are crappy, terrible companies, and it's famous last words when these ones don't work out, when it's that black swan that just goes absolute berserk and craziness, and that's where the respect factor has to come. But how many of these just continue to tickle, finickle, dill pickle shorts like crazy, but still eventually by the end of the closing day still end up somewhere below that opening price? This one wasn't crazy below that opening price, but that's not where I'm looking to get short, is right at the open. But there's backside in all of these. But of course there's upside to the same effect. So that's what I've been continually trying to do, is find that upside. But now I'm convincing myself that, it's going to be a good idea to shift it to obviously we can't find the upside that well, so let's shift it to the backside. Maybe that we'll find some luck there, but it's just going to continually be a game of reading the tea leaves and how much risk tolerance am I willing to put on these trades, and size myself appropriately alongside of that. So that was PLX. Let's get into MLUN. Man, this one I carried this one I did actually trade 10 shares. I know, big size. Hold your applause. Of looking for that push to a breakout. It was kind of unlikely. The pre-market looked pretty nice today, but just coming in of market hours just really was not a huge, insane amount of dollar volume. Looking at scans here, it looks like only $8.73 million volume traded on the day, compared to where we've been some of these previous trading days, over close to 400 million here, above 500 million. Yeah, some pretty nice volume of days, super low floater. So just kind of waiting, anticipating for the 3.5 break, looking for this 3.5 move above this previous line that has been obviously a key technical indicator, and waiting patiently for that movement. This trade specifically today was in the process of, hey, I know this is an incredibly less probable trade, but I think it still could have potential from here to start building or snowballing, accumulating closer to that price point. So I'm going to keep my size incredibly small. If this $3 level holds, I think it could be a decent checkmark box to suggest that, hey, this could be a potential swing trade for the next few days to play into that breakout point, not playing the actual breakout trade, but to kind of allow ourselves to build into that trade and already have a seated position of power from that trade for that specific trade. But yeah, just was on the cards today for the afternoon. I pretty much got filled right as that $3 level was broken for the rest of the day in the afternoon, and got stopped out at 2.9 for kind of randomly, not so randomly, but of 2.9, setting that arbitrary risk level there, of knowing that the trade was the trade idea that I had was definitely not going to be happening if it at 2.9 level broke. So dollar loss on that one. Guess I can't be getting a McDonald's ice cream cone today, but it is all a part of the trading career. And kind of trying to model this specific breakout trade in mind, trying to play that out if it does end up happening within the next few potential trading days, of modeling it similar to this Monday, if we do maybe a 15-minute here, of how this chart traded of this 3-5 range, that we get this bigger wedgy candle that kind of closes in closer to this 3.5 point, until eventually we get this big volume push that proves and pushes it to say, hey, this sentiment for this trade, for this chart, at least for the meantime, is going to be upward. Looking for something similar to that. So it's not so much a factor of as soon as the first time that price reaches to that 3.5 mark, that's when I start to play it, but allowing it to, hey, let's ramp to that mark. Let's go squeeze another 25 cents, pull back, kind of squeeze out all the eager longs and temporary shorts, then play this little wedge game again, see if we can find a line around that key indicator of 3.5, and then potentially build off of that to ramp closer to maybe $4 or infinity and beyond off of there. But just did not happen today, so we'll continue to keep our eye on that little former runner there in MULN. And then also ACER, another little first screen day mover, American Pharmaceutical, 10 million floater. They got lots of ATMs. I thought it funny to see on Dilution Tracker that there was Jones Trading specifically, that it was mentioning those ATMs were from. So kind of looking up their website, it's just a shoddy, kind of crappy website. So intrigued to see what would happen today because of that influence, that, hey, maybe we could see some repeatable patterns happening because of that, this Jones Trading involvement, whatever manipulation, pumping up steam room that is, boiler room. For that could be. So excited to see what was going to happen today. Wasn't really intrigued in it, interested trading it long. I think Chris also did actually try it, a little attempt on this one as a dip and rip, but just got unfortunately slammed again. These stupid candles that happen again and again. But that may have been a factor in that Jones Trading manipulation of reeling in the retail trader, bringing in the volume, getting into market hours, and then rinse and repeating these same type of ideas, getting that volume to come in, and they're just absolutely slamming them as soon as it barely even taps above VWAP there, and just really nothing. Death sentiment on it for the rest of the market hours trading day. Just had nothing else going for it. Took a little few stabbies. Their newscast today was also FDA breakthrough and therapy designation, blah, 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 whatever. They also got an equity line, some little shelfage, so they got some influence coming into them. I saw on these little tiny trades here, I think both of these were just 10 shares a piece as well. The same type of thing of not really huge playbook trades, but of the thought process that, hey, these could be kind of heavily manipulated, factoring in on that Jones Trading thing, and also seeing a huge bid stacking up at 376 at this point here. That was just saying, okay, I can kind of use that as one of my big indicators of potential new highage of this thing during pre-market, that it just can start to continue to rip faces into market open, establishing along at just at the 376 mark. I think I got 377 maybe after seeing that move there, but then sure enough, 1 minute later, just absolutely ripped through the downside there. So cutting it as I broke that little low, taking my little $1, $2 loss, whatever that was, but of testing that little theory and seeing, well, okay, I was wrong in that. As it continues to hold above VWAP in this pre-market, thinking, gosh, I've been short so many tickers similar to this that have just then done that little teasy or broke to a new high or just continue to rip and go crazy, kind of blow minds before market open even. Let's see if that's going to happen today, and that Jones Trading has any factor in that, or that just becomes more manipulative type of ticker today. Like, that's the reason for it. Getting in it again as it was kind of just before it had this nice little move to break to a new relative high here above. This high was 388. But sure enough, just nothing came out of that and started to break to the downside of VWAP. So cutting it again pretty quickly as it was showing the weakness there. And yeah, nothing else really intriguing me enough to take another stab at it on that today. Just testing theories and keeping my size incredibly small while I do that. But definitely need to, as a trader, I just continue to do this again and again of thinking I'm testing theories and doing these things, blah, blah, blah. But there comes a time that with these key specific playbook trades, not these one, not what I'm seeing here, but of
when I start to identify those key playbook trades, that those become the slam dunk hard position size throwers on those of starting to bring in the cash, and not just become like, oh, I like pushing buttons and clicking a mouse every single day. Like, it's just starting to bring in actual cash, or that is the goal in itself, and it constantly reminding me of that over and over. That is all I just want to mention ATER to finish it up, of keeping this one on watch, of potentially playing this one for a third day move, but not so much just for the third day intraday, but of potentially modeling this chart after what it did here in August, September of 2021. Huge first day move there. Second day looks like a big red day, but third day kind of consolidating, and then just continuing this upward, continuing this press. Huge, crazy parabolicness. I mean, like penny stock framework type of stuff there on this chart like that. So big, nice volume candle today, intraday. Huge morning session move there. It's getting some nice, I mean, for what it's worth, it's getting some nice news coverage from Seeking Alpha, or Sucking Alpha, as Tim Bowen likes to call it. I mean, so we'll see if certainly it's not horrific, but yeah, we'll just see what ends up happening of it. I'm just keeping it on my radar, potentially for the next few days, maybe establishing a little swing position on that bad boy. But that is all that I had on the day. I sincerely thank you guys all for watching, and we will catch you guys on the next one.